Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Marty Marion. Marty, welcome to our live
Hey,
today.
Matt,
Thanks for joining us.
my pleasure, my pleasure. So, do I have a choice between man, myth, and legend? Is that I can pick one?
Yeah, and a scholar, you're a gentleman and a scholar as well.
Uh-oh, now I'm in trouble.
So yeah, we're just gonna have a little talk about compliance, which is one of your many areas of expertise. And we both know that it's really important these days to be compliant with your CBD brand. And so, just had a few questions that I wanted to run by you and see what your thoughts are these days in the area of compliance with CBD brands.
Sure, of
Um,
course.
Awesome. So like as far as what's going on right now in the CBD world, what are your thoughts on the current regulatory landscape in regards to CBD?
That's a big question. So, the regulatory landscape is more complex than a lot of people think it is, right? So, if you're in the CBD business, you're focused on CBD and your business and manufacturing or acquiring and marketing your particular CBD products. But the regulatory landscape within which CBD falls is a much bigger landscape, right? It's regulated by the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act, which means that there are laws, regulations, and policies that have been in place for many, many years, decades, that regulate how supplements, foods, cosmetics, topicals, creams, etc., can be marketed, whether it's CBD or not. And then the regulatory landscape gets more complicated by the fact that CBD is a derivative of a product that has been on Schedule 1 forever. And so you now have multiple federal agencies trying to make sense out of a hodgepodge of regulations that have developed over the last couple of decades, some of which haven't changed since the 1990s.
Yeah.
And then to make it even more complicated, you have individual states passing their own sets of laws and regulations. So you now have the conflict of, does state law permit something to be done inside a given state, but federal law still says no, it can't be done? Who wins?
Who does win?
Um,
It's,
great question. Um,
I always heard that state overrides federal, but I'm not a lawyer.
only,
Like in the case of medical marijuana, look at how how the medical marijuana, the states that interacted with that. Um,
yeah, so there's a difference between perception and reality, right?
yeah.
And if a given activity is legalized within a state for the citizens, residents of that state, and that activity does not extend outside of the state border, then state law typically will prevail.
Gotcha.
However, if there are implications, what in legal jargon is typically called a nexus, where something that is primarily going on within a state where it's legal creeps out of the state somehow, then federal law takes over. So, for example, if you have a website and you're marketing a product on a website in your own state where it is legal, but that website is available to people in other states where they can go on that website and order your product. Now you're no longer intrastate, you are interstate.
Yeah.
Federal law will apply. At the end of the day, certain regions of the country are judiciarily managed by either more conservative courts or more liberal courts. And depending on where your case happens to fall, you could be blessed with the advantages of the political considerations of the federal district in which your particular case may come up. Let's go back to your original question. The regulatory landscape is changing. When the Farm Bill was passed, a lot of people thought that legalized CBD. It didn't.
Yeah, you still hear people saying it.
Right, exactly. Oh, the Farm Bill, so now CBD is legal. And you and I have both seen many, many brands that market themselves as 50 state legal, right?
Yeah.
Legal in all 50 states. And that is just not true. That's an outright false statement. And you can fight all you want, but at the end of the day, you can't fight City Hall and win, right? You may win the court case 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, and you've spent $500,000 fighting it, and you win at the end, and you're out of business because you're broke. Something very interesting is going on right now with CBD, and that is the reaction of the public has become overwhelmingly favorable, overwhelmingly significant in the demand for and interest in CBD. And the FDA sees this. The FDA recognizes this.
Yeah.
And they have said so much. They said, look, we need to really take another look at this. Because according to the letter of the current law today, which has not changed, CBD is illegal to sell in the United States, period. In any form, from any source, doesn't matter. CBD is illegal according to the FDA. But what they've said was, while we have the authority to shut it down today, we're not going to. So what we are going to do is continue to protect the public. So what FDA is doing is really two things at the same time. One is they are thinking about, they're going to start to hold hearings really soon and get input from professionals, meaning medical doctors, scientists, interested parties, to provide information about whether or not CBD should be permitted to be sold as a supplement in the United States. That's a process that's going to take a while. It could take 2 years. It could take 3 years. And there is absolutely no guarantee at the end of that process anything is going to change.
It's just crazy. Have you ever seen such a mass flouting of the law? Like, and companies are public, like they're making millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, it's interesting. I've never seen anything like it. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think that there are two ways to look at this. One way is to say, look, it's kind of like the Wild West right now, right? Yeah. So we're going to be Bonnie and Clyde, and we're going to go rob as many banks as we can until we get caught, right? Yeah. And I see, and you see, and we're not going to name and shame anybody, by name here, but you and I both see that there are CBD companies that are blatantly violating the law, making illegal claims, selling the daylights out of their product, and making as much money as they can. And maybe that's the business strategy that they've decided on, is let's make as much as we can right now before we get caught or before things change and maybe they don't go in our favor. So it's a money grab. That's a business decision. I can't make an opinion on that. You can't make an opinion on that. We may think it's a good business decision if your only objective is to make money. But I have moral objections to it personally. I think that deceiving the public is a very dangerous game to play because the science is pretty clear. CBD has amazing value in so many areas of human health. And that science has been clear for a long time. So it would be really great if something like CBD could find its way to a legal path where it could be marketed and protected well. And the public could be protected and have access to quality products.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen in the news, I don't know if you saw that there's a RICO case going forward now against three CBD companies, and one of them is major because they were saying that there was zero THC in the product when there actually was, and this gentleman failed his drug test and got fired from his job, and now they got a RICO case against him.
Yeah, so RICO, which is typically associated with mob and mafia related, organized crime, right? RICO is the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, which is typically brought against organized crime, right?
Yeah.
And the underpinning of RICO says that entities who come together to intentionally do something illegal fall under the racketeering issue. Now, RICO can be pressed federally, it can be pressed at the state or local level. RICO can be criminal, RICO can be civil. RICO really is a catch-all for groups of entities working together to do something illegal. And this particular RICO case that was just authorized by the courts to move ahead under RICO basically alleges, and this is a big claim, is it going to pass? I don't know. But what they're saying is that this gigantic industry is all working together somehow behind the scenes to defraud the public. And, I saw someone in your amazing Facebook group, the CBD Business Success Group, that they had actually tested, I think it was over 200 brands of CBD,
Yeah.
and not one of them actually tested to the degree that they said on their labeling.
Yeah,
That, that's crazy.
that's bad. I mean, and I got to talk to Robert because, like, of course, there's a general degree of, like, say your bottle has 300 milligrams and it tests and it has 298 milligrams. That's like, borderline. But, like, if it has 5 milligrams, then we got a problem, But usually, if you're smart as a company, you should put extra in there. So maybe it's 310 milligrams. So so that
Just a point of information for you. In the supplement industry in general, there is a standard practice where supplements will, to some degree, degrade over time, right?
Yeah.
So if you're buying vitamin B12, right, at your local drugstore or health food store, and it says 1,000 micrograms per tablet, but the shelf life is 3 years, they will typically put more than 1,000 in so that down the road, as it reaches its best buy date, the degradation of the level of bioavailable B12 will come down to what's labeled, right? So
Yeah.
typically, there's always a little extra put in at the beginning because of that. And that's standard practice, and it's fine within limits.
And I've only talked to one CBD manufacturer that purposely does that. And I talked to a lot of manufacturers. So yeah.
And it's actually a very smart practice because as long as you're staying within toxicity safety levels, right? You should be fine, and it's a good practice to do. The bigger issue is CBD that does or does not contain THC. because THC is still the problem,
Yeah.
right? So when you have a label that says 0 THC, but it tests out as actually having THC in it, that is really misleading the public. And it's misleading to the public um, to what we call a significant degree. So, for example, I want to sell you my car, right? So I'm telling you that my car is in excellent condition and the leather on the seats is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of little scratches on it. Am I misleading you? Maybe I'm stretching it a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it going to do you any harm?
No.
Not really. However, if a CBD company says our product does not contain THC, but it really does,
That's a problem.
that's a problem because it can harm you, like it did to this gentleman who got fired after he failed a drug test because he was led to believe the product he was buying didn't have any THC in it. And then when he bought more after he was fired and sent it off for independent testing, the laboratory that tested it wasn't even allowed to send his sample back to him because it was so far over the legal limit, they were not legally allowed to transport it.
Terrible. Yeah, I read that in that article, and that's a dirty secret in the industry. Like when these labs are making distillate products, it's usually 3 to 4% THC, and then they have to water it down with a carrier oil, and they're probably just not testing it, and they probably think they know what they're doing, and they don't. And that's why you got to have the quality control and GMP practices. And I talked to a friend of mine. He's been manufacturing supplements for 30 years, and he's in the CBD business now too. And he's saying that the labs that don't get their GMP certifications are going to be out of business in the next year or two.
Oh, absolutely. Because, going back to what I started to say earlier, so FDA realizes CBD is big, it's getting bigger, the demand is incredible. So they've got to do something. They've got to figure out what to do with CBD. And there aren't a lot of choices, right? On one end of the spectrum is let's legalize it as a supplement. That's one end of the spectrum. But it will be regulated just like any other supplement. The claims have to be DSHEA legal, FTC legal, and FDA legal, right?
Yep.
Just like any supplement has to be legal in terms of its use of claims and its use of citations and studies and its labeling, right? So that's one end of the spectrum. Other end of the spectrum is if this is going to be impossible, CBD will not be allowed as a supplement. And in the middle, between those two extremes, is the possibility that some types of CBD that may have to register or be reviewed for some set of criteria and pass will be allowed, and others will not be allowed. You and I have had this conversation before about the fact that there's, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is big pharma, right? If CBD is going to become a multi-gazillion billion-dollar industry, big pharma wants their piece.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest piece. But it's very difficult to take a full spectrum molecule and standardize it to the level to which a pharmaceutical prescription grade product needs to be standardized. So one possibility is maybe full spectrum is allowed by FDA for the public, and isolate is restricted for big pharma for drug use, prescription.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking too, that they might go that route. So broad spectrum and full spectrum will be for the public, or people. Joe Smo that wants to start a CBD brand, he can use broad spectrum or full spectrum in his product or her product, and then isolate will be for pharmaceuticals only, which I'm fine with that, because the full spectrum and broad spectrum work better than isolate anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying there, but I think that there are several possible outcomes in the regulatory landscape, and we don't know what they are today, right?
Yeah. It's all a
So,
guess.
well, and because it's all a guess, CBD companies need to make a business decision. Are they going to try to grab as much as they can now and pay less attention to being credible and legitimate and building their brand positioning to be trustable brands, trustworthy brands, or not? And here's where I have my biggest problem. There are very legitimate CBD companies out there today that go to great lengths and spend a lot of time and a lot of money doing their testing, doing their certifications, making sure their manufacturing is top shelf, and doing a great job in presenting their product truthfully and honestly to the public. If everybody did that in the industry, it would be okay. The problem is that there are MLM companies in the CBD space that have hundreds or thousands of independent representatives that have no oversight, that go all over Facebook and post every. I've heard that CBD can cure every known problem on
Yeah.
the planet. Okay.
Yeah.
And, it just, first of all, that's not true. Okay. CBD is not the Star Trek medical device that you take a couple of drops and everything is cured instantaneously. It's just
Yeah.
not.
No, it's just part of it's part of the holistic lifestyle. It's a big part of it, but it's not the be all end all, that's for sure.
And it may be a phenomenal product with more potential health benefits than many other things that have come along in the last 100 years. That's not the issue. The issue is that it only takes a few bad apples to spoil the entire barrel, right? And if you've got a couple of sleazy CBD companies out there who are taking the approach of, let's make this a money grab, let's sell as much as we can, make as much money as we possibly can before the shit hits the fan, right? That is going to piss off the FDA to such a degree that they're going to start to take a closer and closer and closer look at all of the CBD manufacturers and marketers, which makes it more important that if you are legitimate, if you do have a good um, moral compass, and you are trying to bring good quality products for the betterment of human health and wellness to the marketplace, you are going to suffer because some other guys didn't really care.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that because it's such a hot market. You're seeing a lot of marketers that come from the affiliate marketing background that don't maybe have as many morals, that just want to get a quick cash grab, and they're making a lot of claims. And so yeah, it's making it tough on the people that are doing good in the industry, like a company that I just spoke to before we got on the phone. They're doing everything right, and they actually even hired you before. So that, and it's funny, I didn't know they hired you, and I was on their website before I talked to them trying to find violations, and I couldn't find any. And I was like, man, you guys did a good job. You don't have any violations that I could see on your site. And they were like, oh, that's because we hired Marty.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into an important point that I wanted to make. Because there are bad actors out there in the CBD world, and they are causing the FDA to become more attentive, more aggressive. We are, take my word for it. And Matt, since you and I started working together and talking together, which goes back years now, right?
Yep.
I've been saying, you've been saying, Dr. B has been saying, compliance is going to become the dividing line between your survival of your business and your business not surviving, the coming onslaught from FDA. And I still believe that more so now than ever before. The
I
problem
do
is,
too.
the problem is the majority of people in business, and I find this in things like SEO, for example, business owners are very close to their business. They are the subject matter expert, but they're not a subject matter expert in other things. So
Yeah.
you've got CBD companies that want to do the right thing, but there's so much bad information out there on the internet. I'll give you one quick example. You know the FDA disclaimer for supplements, right? These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Yeah,
Well,
you know it by heart.
sure. Well, there's a lot of companies out there that think it's okay to put that disclaimer inside their privacy policy. That's not accurate. That's not allowed. It has to be on every page of your website.
Yep.
So, and that's just a tiny example. There are so many misconceptions and there's so much bad information, wrong information out there, right? Oh, well, I have a consumer who used our product and they wrote this great testimonial, and let's say it's legitimate. A real consumer really wrote a testimonial, and in the testimonial, they make a treatment claim, and you put that testimonial on your website. It doesn't matter that a real customer said it. The minute you put it on your website, you're saying it, and now you're in violation. And
Yeah.
there's so much of this going on out there, that being compliant is the single most important issue. You raised the GMP manufacturing issue a few minutes ago. Your product must be manufactured in a registered CGMP facility. Period. There's no exceptions. That is part of the FDA's requirement to market a product to the public.
Yeah, and I would say, at least, I don't know, 7 out of 10 CBD manufacturers don't have that certification at the moment. They say, "Oh, we abide by GMP practices," but they don't actually have the seal of
Yeah,
approval.
well, at the end of the day, sorry, not good enough.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what my buddy was saying. They're going to get shut down if they don't get their certifications. And so it'll be good, though, as we see the industry move forward, that hopefully people, well, either they're going to learn a hard lesson or they're going to get on board and do things the right way and become compliant. And it just makes the industry look more professional and makes us look better to the public.
Let me add one aspect to that. So any individual CBD marketer can get in trouble if they aren't compliant, if they don't get themselves compliant, and I mean really fast, right? Like last week, they needed to be compliant because FDA is looking right now, today. Warning letters are going out. You've seen them.
Yep.
The bigger issue to me is that if 5 other companies or 10 other companies get warning letters, all the other companies are going to suffer, because that's going to call such greater attention to the industry as a whole, and it's going to become public information. It's going to be reported on Yahoo or in the cannabis-related trade publications and so on, and the public is going to get to a point of just distrusting what anybody says.
Yeah, and it's getting there already. Like you see people saying, like they make jokes about, "Oh, I'm not going to get my CBD from a gas station," and that's bad because you should be able to get a good quality CBD product at a gas station if you want.
Yeah, assuming it's legal, and right, and we see gigantic chain stores, pharmacies, food stores, grocery stores starting to stock CBD products, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you say to yourself, well, I mean, and I'm just ABC Pharmacy, which has 2,800 stores across the country, right? Not going to name anybody, is now selling CBD. And you're thinking, wow, they probably got 500 lawyers on staff. It's got to be legal, but not really.
It's
And
interesting.
I think that's going to, I think that's going to backfire.
Have you ever seen anything like that though, where a major retailer was selling a product that is technically in a gray area like that? Because from my understanding, it's legal through the eyes of the DEA, but not legal through the eyes of the FDA.
Go back to what I said at the beginning. Because of the Epidiolex IND exclusionary rule, all CBD is illegal to sell in the United States today, right now, as we are doing this live.
Yeah.
All of it is illegal to sell. Just because the FDA has chosen not to enforce that IND exclusion today doesn't mean they couldn't change their mind next week. FDA Administrator Scott Gottlieb is gone. New one's coming in. We don't know what is going to happen.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's a wait and see. And I know May 31st, I believe, is when they're starting the public hearings with in regards to CBD. So we'll be posting about that in our groups to keep people abreast of what's going on with that. And then, another thing I see people asking a lot these days is, like if you were launching a CBD brand, would you put CBD on your label or would you put something like full spectrum hemp extract?
So that's a bigger question than it may appear to be. First of all, labeling is one of the most important areas that FDA takes a look at.
Yeah.
Because if you say something on a website and you say it wrong or in violation, it's a 5-minute fix, right? You can change words on your website in 5 minutes. You print labels and those labels are on a shelf someplace at a CVS or at a dispensary or at a gas station or at 7-Eleven, wherever they are. Now you're out in the public, right? So the FDA and the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, have jurisdiction over truth in advertising and mislabeling. So this is, again, one of those gray area business decision versus what's the right thing to do questions, okay? According to the letter of the law, you must identify that CBD, cannabidiol, is in your product if it is.
But isn't that saying if you put full spectrum hemp extract, CBD is in full spectrum hemp extract?
Yes. So now if you look at any particular, I don't think I have one really handy at the moment, but if you look at any supplement packaging, an actual bottle of supplements, you've got the face, the front, called the primary area. And then at the back, you've got the supplement facts area, right?
Yeah.
There are different requirements to what you put on each of those areas. On the front of the bottle, I'll just use bottle or package, you can say full spectrum hemp extract. But in the supplements facts box, if one of those components is CBD, you must identify it as such. Otherwise, you're mislabeling.
Gotcha. So that, and I see it even with major brands that are in major retail locations. Because one thing, if you like, I noticed in California, there was a pretty big chain of natural food markets, and they ended up putting a lot of CBD on their floor. And then one day I went back, and there was only 2 brands left, and they were the only brands that didn't say CBD on the packaging. They just said hemp, or whatever, hemp extract, and right. they let those slide.
Sure, because as I said, there's a difference in the requirements of what you put on the primary information area of a label and what you put in the supplements facts box.
Even in the facts box, they said phytocannabinoids, and they said like whatever milligrams, but they never said CBD.
Yeah, that's kind of bending it a little bit.
Yeah.
but because you and I both know that there are many phytocannabinoids,
Yeah.
right? And there are many components of the result of the extraction process from hemp, right? So you've got CBD, CBA, CBN, CBG. There's a whole plethora of cannabinoid related molecules. And there are requirements that if your product contains over a certain percentage, either by volume or by quantity, then you have to identify that in the label. That's a law.
Yeah.
You have to say so.
Yeah.
And
So if I'm making labels, you probably don't want to make too many labels at one time because everything changes all the time. So
well, it really doesn't change all the time. The bottom line is your labels need to be compliant, period. Because mislabeling is a much higher level violation than saying something that's slightly wrong or, crosses the line a little bit, right?
gotcha.
So labeling is really important. And, Al Capone back in Chicago in the Prohibition era, um, they didn't get him for murder. They didn't get him for prostitution. They didn't get him for gambling. They didn't get him for all the mob related activity. They got him for tax evasion.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to look at CBD the same way. Where are you going to get hurt? Right? Knowing that it's illegal to begin with, but the FDA has kind of said, we're not going to go crazy today, but if you cross that line too far, now we're going to come after you.
Yeah, and they even said it recently. I read an article. They said explicitly the people that are making claims are the ones that we're going to go after first.
Yeah.
So
So now
you
you
have
have
to
to watch.
decide as a company if you want to risk that or not. If you're going to go out and make claims, you're going to be on the radar.
Correct. So now, for the benefit of anybody who's watching this and the members of your group, and for the CBD marketing community in general, you have to take it one step further. What is a claim? Right?
Yeah.
By law, a supplement is exactly what it sounds like. It is meant to supplement the normal human diet. And supplements are only allowed to maintain a good, proper, normal, optimal state of health. That's it. Period.
You make it so simple, Marty. Like people always get so confused and all you got to do is focus on what Marty just said right there.
So now let me give you one example.
Yeah.
And I posted this in the group, but I think this is a great opportunity. Pain is not a normal state of health. If you're in normal, good health, you're not in pain. Now, that doesn't mean if you bang your elbow against the door, it's not going to hurt for a few minutes, right? Or if you get tackled in a game of football with your friends, you're going to ouch for a little while. That's pain, but it's part of the normal everyday cycle, right? However, if you really are in pain on a regular basis, chronic pain, that's not a normal state of health. The minute you are out of the normal state, supplements cannot claim to help you get back a normal state of health. That's treatment. And treatment claims are illegal.
Got
So
it.
you can't say anything like relieved pain relief cream, right? For pain. Nothing like that is legal.
Can you say something like it keeps you in a pain-free state?
Yes, depending on the context of what else is said around it, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, one example I always like that you told me before was like in relation to sleep, you can't say this helps insomnia, but you could say this helps promote healthy sleep patterns.
Absolutely. So insomnia is a disease. It is a chronic condition by which you can't fall asleep for whatever reason, right? Could be a
Yeah.
disease, could be stress, could be financial problems and worries in your life. There's a reason that you regularly cannot fall asleep. But if you're in the state of insomnia, it's a disease. So you can't say that any supplement helps with insomnia, period, in any way. Relieves insomnia, reduces insomnia, for insomnia, cannot say. However, helps maintain normal, healthy sleep patterns, that's fine. You can even say can help with occasional sleeplessness.
Ah, yeah, I like that one. You told me that before too. That's a good one.
Because everybody has a night here and there they can't fall asleep easily, right? That's not a
Yeah.
disease. That's a once in a while, I can't fall asleep.
Yep.
So you've got to be very careful and really understand the nuances of what claims are and don't make them.
Yeah. And
Your copy, you can't make them by using consumer testimonials and reviews. You cannot even use a scientific paper on your website, for example, that says, oh, and the Harvard Medical School studied 429 patients with arthritis and found that CBD reduced the symptoms of arthritis by 18%. You can't say that. That's a treatment claim. That's a disease claim. Even though somebody else, very credible, Harvard Business School, Harvard Medical School, doctors, you cannot include any disease-related or treatment-related claims anywhere, no matter who wrote them.
yep.
The minute you put them on your website, you're saying it.
Yeah, it's funny, and people think they can do that and just put a disclaimer saying something like "That's not our studies" or whatever. It's ridiculous.
So to me,
Um,
the FDA disclaimer is the price of entry, right?
right.
You will get penalized if you don't have it, but you don't get any brownie points for having it. It doesn't give you any protection.
Yeah, they think if they just put that and then they're good, if they can put all the studies they want, but it's just not the case. And a lot of people just don't understand or know these things. And that's kind of a segue into, if you are launching your own brand or you already have a brand, Marty, I've talked to 3 different FDA compliance lawyers. Marty knows more than all 3 of them put together about compliance.
So
And
hold on, hang on. Let me make the disclaimer. I am not an attorney. I do not practice law. I have been in the health space almost my entire professional career. And I was a principal of literally the world's largest pharmaceutical and healthcare and medical advertising and marketing agency. And I have worked with the FDA and Big Pharma for 35 years plus. But I am not an attorney. I do not give legal advice. But I've seen a lot of attorneys out there give advice that is just absolutely upside down when it comes to interpreting FDA. I do have an attorney that I work with who is an FDA, DSHEA, FTC compliance attorney. So if there's something that is really a complex issue, I'll certainly bring him in. But I just wanted to disclaim I am not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice.
gotcha. Yeah, you're better than one, in my opinion. And but
Thank
yeah, and I've learned so much from you. And so that's one thing that Marty offers is a compliance review, people. So reach out to me, just ping me, and I can introduce you to Marty. If you're looking to get your website or your labels or your copy reviewed by Marty, and he'll blow your mind. You think you've done it right, and then he'll look at your copy and he'll be like, there's 20 violations here, and you thought you did it all right. So I would highly suggest to reach out to me, and then I can connect you to Marty for a compliance review, and it covers a lot. So you'll be sure to be comforted by knowing after you work with him that you didn't break any those rules with the FDA and DSHEA.
Think about it this way, Matt, and I don't. And I'm truly, yes, I'd love to, and I do this as a service. Um, I'm not trying to, hard sell my compliance review services here, but think about it this way: if you're in this business and you're looking at making 5, 6, 7, 8 figures a month, a year, the investment in getting yourself fully compliant and understanding why certain things you're doing are not compliant, you'll be able to prevent making those violations in the future. It's a really, really cheap investment relative to the potential of losing your business, getting a warning letter, or having your product seized.
I totally agree. And then once you learn from Marty, then you could take that into any company that you launch in this, like you might launch other brands in the future, then you'll already know what to do and what not to do. So I definitely suggest reaching out if you want to do things the right way, especially if you want a brand that you're going to eventually sell. Do you think a major public company is going to buy your brand if you're making claims and violating the FDA? I don't think so. So if I had any plans of selling my brand in the future, I would make sure I'm doing it right from day one, and I would hire Marty and make sure my copy and my labeling and website is compliant. But yeah, Marty, I really appreciate you taking the time to educate everybody today. And like I said, if anybody wants to reach out and work with Marty, just reach out to me and I'll make that connection. And yeah, thanks for all your wisdom, Marty. And you've taught me more than any marketer I know. So I'm always looking forward to talking to you and jumping on the phone. And every time it's like a university class. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I want to repay the thanks, Matt, because you're one of the pioneers in this particular space. You probably know more than most people know about the ins and the outs and the trials and tribulations, and you've seen it from both sides, the ups and the downs, and the work that you're doing to keep this industry moving and safe and help people take advantage of the opportunities and keep them protected is phenomenal. So you're doing this industry an amazing, amazing service, you and Dr. B and the people that you're working with. And it's a privilege for me to help support the efforts that you're putting out there. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, and I was gonna say I couldn't do it without Dr. B. And so yeah, she's out there somewhere on like watching the live right now. So we love you.
Hi, Dr. B.
We'll see you soon, babe. And so, Marty, I will talk to you soon. And thank you for everybody for tuning in. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up and we'll get you in touch with Marty.
Thank you very much, Matt. Great to talk to you always. And we'll chat later.
Cool. Sounds good. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.